And how about going to some talking about cleaning products? How about the use of essential oils for home health,
Mhm.
and how do you incorporate it into your cleaning products and other home care routines?
Sure. So, I have kind of a contrary opinion on essential oils, mainly because, again, my experience of working with people with extreme chemical sensitivity. They have taught me over the years that essential oils are just as bad for them as a chemical coming off of a surface. Now, that doesn't mean that it's bad for everybody, of course. These are people who have a very extreme health issue. But it got me to do a little bit of digging many years ago about this. And I learned that with essential oils, the human body can tolerate exposure to essential oils for about 15 minutes before it starts to have a negative effect on the body. And so I have no problem with the average person using them, provided that they use them sparingly, and not use them to mask the odors that are found in your home. People use fragrances to mask the fact that they have a problem with their air quality, to mask the fact that they maybe didn't clean properly, they have a mold problem, they've got other issues going on in the home. And I think essential oils, it's one of those things where it's because it smells good, whatever you're using. You can say, well, I'll just use a little bit of this. And then you become sort of accustomed to it. The more you use it, the more you have to use, because again, the body has the ability to mask things naturally. So think of best example I can give you is the paint industry. Many, many years ago, there was a company called Ed Wiggins Paint. Nobody's ever heard of Ed Wiggins Paint. Ed Wiggins Paint came out with a paint that they put a lemon scent into the paint, and they advertised it as, when you're painting the walls, your home smells like fresh cut lemons. And this was 100% to hide the smell of the chemicals used in paint. This is what's called a chemical masking agent. Now, Ed Wiggins stopped making that paint probably within 2 years, because they found that the chemicals that they used to create the lemon scent actually turned rancid over a period of time, and now your walls smelled like rotten lemons. But the technology, the concept still exists. Paint manufacturers use a lot of other chemicals that nobody's ever heard of, and I can't pronounce, and it's not even on the label because it makes up less than 1% of the volume. And these chemicals counteract the smell of the chemicals that give you that traditional paint smell. So this is what's called a chemical masking agent. It's used extensively in the paint industry. And so when you smell a paint that's called zero VOC and green and air friendly and all this stuff, you'll say, boy, I don't even smell paint. This is great. The chemicals are still there, probably more of them, and it's still causing those problems. Now, getting back to essential oils, I believe that essential oils are essentially the exact same thing for most people. There are certain situations where using essential oils is probably good medicinally speaking, but I think we overuse them. And because we're hit with all these different scents throughout the day, it numbs our senses and it causes a detrimental effect.
So I just want to clarify my understanding of what you're saying to make sure that the audience understands it. So you're saying that the essential oil itself may be fine, may have medicinal value, aromatherapy may be great or whatever, but if you're using it to cover the smell of your house, you may still have something underlying that's dangerous, and you're going to miss out on that fact, and you're not going to treat it because you're just putting your a fragrance over it.
So yes, it's actually both. It's, yes, you might be covering something else up that you could take care of, or you should take care of, and the fact that we're probably utilizing them too much. I think that, again, what I read years ago, and talked to a number of holistic healthcare practitioners, and they agreed that too much exposure, and usually 15 minutes at a time, you can use them throughout the day, but just for no more than about 15 minutes. Wait several hours and use it again for another 15 minutes. But just any longer than that, it can actually be problematic.
And in your answer just a moment ago, you mentioned the fact that there may be chemicals in the paint, or I'm assuming in other products as well, that aren't listed because they're less than 1% of volume. Is that
Mhm.
is that a thing that they don't have to list
Mhm.
ingredients regardless of the toxicity? So it could be completely terrible for you, and they don't need to list it as long as it's less than 1%.
Exactly right. So this is a good opportunity to discuss the what's called the safety data sheet or material safety data sheet. I think it's been customary for anybody who is interested in learning more about what they're using in their home to request or download from their website the safety data sheet for, let's say, a paint or an adhesive or flooring material, what have you. A safety data sheet was developed many, many years ago to assist firefighters and first responders on how to deal with a spill on the highway, a train accident, an industrial accident, and then how to protect the body in order to go back in there to do cleanup. Okay. Safety data sheets are not a health uh, declaration whatsoever. They're not a declare label. They don't tell you everything that's in the product. By law, a safety data sheet only has to tell you what makes up more than 1% of the volume if it's deemed to be hazardous and it would require cleanup issues. And if it's part of what's called a proprietary blend, which happens in the industry all the time, they don't have to list it because they don't want to divulge their secrets and have somebody make the product that they've invented. So the safety data sheets are really just pointless in my mind because the manufacturer only has to list certain things and only at certain quantities. Now, this means that you could have 10 to 15 different I mentioned this before, what are called formaldehyde donors. Formaldehyde donors are these ingredients that each one of them makes up less than 1% of the volume, so none have to be listed. But when they combine, when you paint the wall, all these donors come together and it turns into formaldehyde during the curing process. None of these chemicals need to be listed on the MSDS. So therefore, the manufacturers are hiding the fact that they're not using formaldehyde as an ingredient. They're making formaldehyde on your wall. But because it's not more than 1%, and you're not buying it in a cured state or a dry state, you're buying it in a liquid state, they don't have to divulge it.
Wow. Okay. And do you use products where you know the exact ingredients? So if someone comes to you, you know that they don't have something that's going to be making formaldehyde on their wall.
So yes and no. So yeah, I know that the products that we have here, I personally test specifically for formaldehyde off gassing because that is a key trigger for people with allergies, asthma, and chemical sensitivities. If the manufacturer provides what's called a declare label, and that means that it's going to show every ingredient they have. And then it's up to me to look at those ingredients and say, well, how can they combine and turn into some nasty things? If I can't do that, just from my own research, I'll do the formaldehyde testing. And then I also use just anecdotal information from my clients. Again, uh, clients, I've worked with over 30,000 clients over the years, and most of them with chemical sensitivities. And they're the ones telling me this works. I've used it and they've used it and it's worked great for them for the last so many years. So I can pretty much trust that, if the canaries in the mine shaft are doing okay, it's good for the rest of us.
Great. And what are your thoughts on the use of natural building materials, and how can homeowners choose healthier building materials for their homes?
I think that the use of natural building materials has to be done in a very, very um, detailed manner. It has to be planned. I'm not a big believer in using natural building materials for reducing a chemical load in the home because there's a lot of natural materials that aren't very safe for humans. Um, the biggest issue for me is there's a sort of an argument in the construction industry, and it's always been around, it always will be around, between do you want to build a home that breathes or do you want to build a home that doesn't breathe? And what I mean is do you want to build a home where air from the outside can come into the home through the walls, and essentially your walls are the lungs of your home, right? My thought is no, you don't want to build a home that the walls are your lungs, because you know what happens is when you get something foreign in your lung, it can turn into a problem. And I don't want that to happen within your walls, because that means it can turn into a mold problem. I would rather build a home in a concrete box that is completely non-breathable. And the only way you get fresh air in that home is by introducing it through the use of uh, energy recovery ventilators and bringing in fresh air. This allows me to bring the fresh air in, purify it, and put it into the rooms. I know exactly where it's coming from. I know exactly what the humidity level is. I know that it's pure air and it's not damaging my walls. A natural built home, homes that are built with certain types of material that allow for the breathability of the walls. This is why we got into problems years ago with homes. You know, homes that are built in up until the late 1990s or late 1980s were built so those walls breathed quite a bit. And what happened was, as we incorporated some unnatural materials into the mix, some plastics, Tyvek, things like that, now we've slowed down the breathing of the walls, and we've locked moisture in the cavity of the wall. And this is where we run into mold problems. And so either the walls need to breathe or the walls do not need to breathe. You can't have it in the middle, because in the middle is where we run into problems. And so you definitely have to work with a professional who knows how to detail those things properly, so you don't end up with a bigger problem down the road.
What advice do you have for individuals looking to create a healthier home environment? And what are simple steps and yet effective for anyone so that they can improve their home health?
Yeah. So I think that improving a home, and let's say it's an existing home and you just want to make it healthier, the number one thing I'll tell you to do is rip out the carpeting in your house. And I mentioned this yesterday in the talk, and I can't say it enough. Carpeting is by far one of the most toxic things you can have in your house. And I don't care if it's 5 years old or 15 years old or what have you, unless it's a brand that is specifically dealing with synthetic chemical free materials and ingredients, which I would say for everybody listening, maybe one person has this type of carpet in their house. Uh, Most of the carpet we use is going to be made from 100% synthetic chemicals. The average carpet today has between 600 and 1,200 chemicals in it. And these chemicals can off gas. I've tested carpet that's up to 31, 32 years old that off gases toxic levels of formaldehyde. So if you were to rip out your carpet and just live on the subfloors, that would actually be healthier. It's not comfortable, it's loud, it's dusty. We know this, but at least you're not being inundated with that chemical throughout the day and throughout the night. So at that point, then choosing healthier flooring materials, and that can be anywhere from a harder surface that's easier to clean to a healthier carpet, a natural wool carpet, not treated with any pesticides or chemical dyes. This would actually improve the indoor air quality tremendously in your home. The second thing you do is, I think for the average person, just clean up the cleaning materials that you're using in your house. I think if you go into the closet, the utility closet of anybody's home, there's probably 15 to 20 different solutions that pretty much all do the same thing, but they're designed for different areas of the home. You can usually take care of everything in your house with a simple make it yourself, vinegar, baking soda and water, or borax, to even buying something that is designed to be a catch-all product, something like a Branch Basics or a AFM, a multi-purpose cleaner, or Shackley Basic H. Really good products that can clean the whole home. Matter of fact, I've used some of these products to do my laundry. I don't need laundry detergent anymore. You can use one product for the entire house, and not only is it good because you don't have these jars or bottles of material stuck in a closet that could be dangerous if a child gets into it, but it's just not smart to have all these chemicals around the house, and you don't need them. I think that in certain situations, if you had a very specific stain, very specific situation that you had to use something a little bit stronger, then fine, use it. But don't rely on it for your everyday cleaning.